WutheringWaves is flawless, is what I would like to say. There is roughly a week left till 1.1 drops, and there's some vital stuff I believe the devs need to address for the sake of this game's future. I seriously love this game whilst having a small addiction to it, as they have smashed it in many aspects, but it just needs to be polished up, and that is why I believe 1.1 will be a major update the devs need to nail. So I just wanted to go through some stuff I believe needs to be either changed or worked on, and share my ideas on some ways how the devs could go about improving the game. Just before we jump right into it, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more WutheringWaves content, and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Along with all of the great stuff dropping in 1.1 such as Genshin and Changli, Mount Firmament, and potentially some new echoes, there needs to be some major improvements, especially in one of the core systems within the game being the ecosystem. The ecosystem is definitely one of the better ways in a game to obtain gear I have seen, as it's more of a fresh concept to obtain gear if you have been playing Hoyoverse games like Genshin and HonkaiStarRail for quite a few years. However, I'm sure everyone has an issue with this system. They have that solid base there, but will need to build and improve on top of it. The most problematic part I find about echoes is the lack of tuners and echo XP, as at some point they literally become non-existent. I genuinely believe the devs just didn't expect players to reach the point of obtaining gold echoes so quick in the game. Like, if you really grinded and made it your mission to obtain gold echoes, you could start obtaining them in a couple days to a week from launch. So then it gets to a point where you've nearly completed everything in order to obtain tuners and echo XP, and you're left with tacit fields, which is just straight up horrible value for your stamina in my opinion. That is, unless you have maxed out your character's 4-tier skill trees, ascended them, leveled them up, and their weapons, but then soon after you'll need to farm the same resources again when you have reached a higher union level. So for most players, they shouldn't be investing too much in tacit fuels, as it's RNG based with the echoes that drop, the materials to level up echoes aren't that much, and it costs 60 stamina a run. A whole crystal solvent, which is a rip-off when you can guarantee progression with your characters when farming for their 40 abilities in 40 stamina domains. So there is a slight issue with picking up tuners and echo XP right now. Tacit fields being 60 stamina I assume would be due to echoes dropping with these materials we desperately need. So I think it would be better honestly if we can just have a simulation challenge added that only drops either tuners or echo XP, or maybe both. That way picking up these materials would cost 40 stamina a run instead, just like the other simulation challenges, and you'll start to save a lot of stamina which you could then use for other domains. It cuts out the whole RNG aspect with echoes, and hopefully they bump up the amount of tuners and echo XP it drops, since these are the materials really hindering many players from progressing. Now there will be players that have upgraded everything possible for their characters and just need to work on the echoes, but they just get really unlucky with RNG not providing the stats their characters need. Then you may have those players that have ridiculous luck and pull double crit rolls on all of their pieces on multiple characters. However, that player with horrible RNG would be gated from progressing, as they need more tuners or echo XP, and is now sat there waiting for more to compete with those that are lucky.
I can't fucking compete!
So another idea would be to synthesize blue and purple tuners into gold tuners, since I'm sure everyone has a ton of these and aren't going to use them as there is no point to. To be able to synthesize these should have been an option from the very start of the game, since as I said, players reached the level of obtaining gold echoes so quick, blue and purple tuners became useless just as quick. I believe this being implemented has a high possibility of coming to fruition in 1.1. Otherwise, the devs really aren't paying attention to the state of their game. Another feature I would love to see in the ecosystem would be to use fodder echoes as echo XP. The option for this again should have been available from the start of the game, as it's literally a thing in other games, and it shouldn't be an issue for it to be implemented. That way we would have the choice to either data merge echoes in hopes of pulling better ones, or be content with our current ones and just upgrade them with fodder echoes. At some point you'll have good enough echoes after all of the hunting and data merging, but you aren't able to level them up. So the priority would switch from data merging to just leveling up. So I do expect this to be implemented in the game, hopefully in 1.1 or the latest in 1.2. Farming for echoes in the open world is a massive problem entirely that needs to be slightly tweaked, since it just isn't right having to farm for days for a single 3-cost echo with the right main stat. There's numerous ways the devs could go about improving this, such as slightly boosting the rate for the main stat to be on the correct set, as you aren't going to use any Glacio or Spectra main stat pieces on the Electro Heron. I'm not even saying for a major jump in the rate for this, but just something. As there's been too many times than I would like that I have pulled literally every other main stat possible apart from Electro damage bonus on the Electro set echo. Now this one will be a bit of a reach, but the guaranteed echo selectors being added as part of the daily rewards, or maybe just over the weekend as a reward for completing completing daily missions. I don't think it would be too big of a deal since realistically you would still need to level them up and actually get lucky with the roles you want, which is more difficult than hologram bosses if I'm being real. The devs did confirm they would be implementing some new features and changes to the ecosystem in 1.1, so I am really hoping they can implement some of these since this amazing system they have constructed is slowly killing off players. Now echoes aside, there's a bunch of other stuff that scream that the game was possibly rushed and released too early. I personally am all for a game to be fully polished before it is released, and I understand not everything will be perfect since that's just how all games are. However, it's the simple stuff you would expect to be perfect, such as the UI with echoes showing the substats. Like you're telling me they really saw Resonance Liberation damage overlapping with the percentage and said we are ready to drop this. To some players it may not mean a thing, but to others it could throw them off from how scuffed the game looks on top of considering other issues. Such as in co-op there's an issue with enemies sometimes just not spawning, like with the Mech Abomination. Of course you can solo the boss, he's not that difficult at all. But if you're playing co-op with a friend and you're farming stuff together, then you run into issues such as not being able to farm this boss. I don't know, maybe because Yinlin just intimidates bosses now to stop them from spawning? It's just not really convenient. A more serious problem is the localization of this game, and I know most of you would know about the issues regarding the Verdant Summit and Lustrous Razor. To keep it brief, the passive of the Verdant Summit was structured to be more appealing than it is for Calcharo, and the Lustrous Razor was structured to be less appealing than it is for Calcharo. So this led to players going all in for the Verdant Summit, believing it was the best in slot weapon for Calcharo, and some players may have spent quite a bit of money for it. However, the reality was you would be able to pick up Calcharo's actual best in slot weapon for free when you reach Union level 45. So this would have definitely angered a lot of players, and I can fully understand where they are coming from. In terms of compensation, I believe it was just the 5 forging tides that were provided through in-game mail to players, which doesn't really make up for the possible full 80 some players may have had to drop. In other gacha games, full compensations would have been issued for a mistake like this. So as generous as KuroGames are in general, I was expecting a bit more from them in this case. I understand they were backed up against the wall since it would have caused more problems if players were essentially provided a weapon for free over those that didn't summon. The main point is that they need to especially ensure that the localization of character abilities and weapons we would spend Ashtrites on are at least 100% correct, since players would be less inclined to spend money because they aren't sure if they'll experience the same problem with the Verdant Summit again. The final issue that really needs to be addressed is regarding the combat. Firstly, the combat is absolutely amazing considering this is a gacha game. From parrying like in a Souls game to dodging like from Nier Automata, it really is exceptional. However, the camera lock-on is sometimes just horrible. I've experienced a few times where my camera would lock onto something invisible in the middle of a fight, which did happen whilst I was attempting a stage in Tower of Adversity, and it's not the greatest experience having to go through that whilst trying your best to avoid being hit by enemies that fly at you from out of nowhere. I've seen many other players complain about this, so I'm really hoping they can fix this issue, since the combat in this game is just so enjoyable that you really don't want things like this to spoil the fun. There's also other issues I've experienced a few times where my character would lock onto a random enemy outside of the boss arena and would literally teleport to those random enemies. Again, I know this has happened to other players when they were near the end of the boss fight, having to go back and beat the boss over again, which to some players may take seconds, but to some it would take longer. Either way, it's still an inconvenience you shouldn't have to deal with and spoils the best part of this game being the combat. Overall, the game is still fun even when considering these issues and bugs, which goes to show how great it truly is. It's just if they are able to straighten out these obvious issues as soon as possible, it would make the WutheringWaves experience a lot better. This is a bit different to my usual videos, but I just wanted to discuss some issues I've experienced and seen which need to be addressed, as I would love to see this game thrive for a long time. Many games have a ton of issues at the beginning, which are fixed and they continue to innovate and improve the game. So this is why I believe 1.1 will either make or break this game, as we would be able to see how the devs respond and adapt to the issues the game currently has, and hopefully will implement a lot of fixes and changes in response. I've constantly heard that KuroGames are the type to listen to their players, try to do their best to satisfy their needs, and do what they can to ensure a great experience. So I'm hoping to see if they can live up to these claims in 1.1. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more WutheringWaves content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also drop a comment regarding what you would like to see implemented in 1.1 and what other changes could KuroGames add to better the game. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.